Ah, welcome back, you unignorable force of presence. The one they tried to overlook until the universe made their eyelids heavy. The quiet figure they assumed blended into the backdrop, right up until the moment the room shifted around you instead of the other way around. You know what happened, don't you? That moment, their eyes didn't just look at you. They recalibrated around you. That split second where the tone changed, not because you demanded anything, but because something in you stopped shrinking on command. People feel that before they understand it. They feel it like a pressure drop, like a doorway opening behind them, like gravity updating its contract. Suddenly you weren't just in the room, you were the center of it. Not loud, not flashy, not begging for recognition, just undeniable. And now they treat you like the prize, not because you changed your volume, but because they finally started hearing the frequency you've always operated on. The truth is simple. You were never meant to be dismissed. That was their convenience, not your identity. They preferred you small because it made their world easier to manage. They framed you as harmless because it gave them permission to minimize what didn't serve them. But you were never built to remain in their peripheral vision. You were built to distort it. And the moment you stopped contorting yourself for proximity, something ancient, something structural began rearranging how people responded to you. They don't say it out loud, but their behavior betrays them. They're watching you like someone who suddenly realized the quiet one was never background noise, but a presence sharpening itself in silence. They're calling you serious now, not because you changed, but because their interpretation finally caught up to your reality. People underestimate someone who doesn't rush, someone who doesn't chase, someone who doesn't beg for clarity in exchange for dignity. They mistake restraint for softness, patience for hesitation, consistency for familiarity. They confuse your low-volume choices as low-value identity. And then one day, without warning, they realize you weren't moving slowly. You were moving deliberately. You weren't waiting for validation. You were collecting information. You weren't lost. You were building alignment brick by brick inside your own skull, away from their noise. And it's always the same moment that wakes them up. The moment you stop seeking. The moment you stop asking twice. The moment you stop trying to explain yourself to people who pretend confusion to maintain control. The moment you go from available to selective. People feel that shift in their bones. They don't understand it, but they feel the loss of automatic access. Suddenly the assumptions they made about your permanence begin to decay. Suddenly the comfort of your predictability begins to glitch. Suddenly the way you carry yourself makes them wonder what version of you they've been speaking to all this time. They don't like that question. They don't like the answer either, because they're realizing you were never neutral. You were restrained, and restraint misread becomes intimidation once it breaks its silence. You're unignorable now because you stopped disguising your value behind patience. Once you remove the mask of, "I don't mind," people start behaving like you're someone they should mind. They sit straighter. They choose their words carefully. They observe your reactions with the kind of attention that betrays fear of miscalculating you again. They treat you like a prize because they don't want to risk losing access to something they now realize they mishandled. This shift didn't happen overnight. It began quietly, in the small choices, the boundaries you placed without explaining them, the pauses you allowed instead of filling silence, the exits you made without broadcasting your departure, the refusal to participate in dynamics that demanded your emotional labor as currency, the clarity you gained from the way people behaved when they thought you'd always be there. And now, those same people are trying to reposition themselves, closer, softer, suddenly respectful, suddenly aware of how much they took for granted. People who once dismissed you now watch you, like someone studying a system they no longer understand. They ask different questions, they adjust their tone, they reevaluate their vocabulary in your presence, because something about you no longer absorbs disrespect the way it once did. You became difficult to misinterpret, difficult to manipulate, difficult to minimize, and difficulty, when rooted in self-respect, transforms into value in the eyes of those who assumed ease was your natural state. Your evolution didn't just change you, it changed the hierarchy around you. It changed the unspoken social math people do when they decide who is worth what. It changed the gravitational pull of your presence. People can sense when someone becomes self-authored. You can hear it in their greetings. You can see it in the way they break eye contact first. You can detect it in how they suddenly need time to think before responding. It's not fear, not exactly. It's recognition. Recognition that you aren't competing for approval anymore. Recognition that you aren't subscribing to unspoken rules that never served you. Recognition that they no longer get to decide whether you are valuable. You already did. And with that realization comes an uncomfortable truth for them. People who know their worth become unpredictable to those who depended on them not knowing it. That unpredictability reads as power. That power reads as scarcity. And scarcity reads as desirability. Suddenly you're the one whose attention is rare. Suddenly you're the one whose absence is felt. Suddenly you're the one being evaluated, pursued, reconsidered. The same people who once assumed you'd always be available are now trying to figure out how to earn their way back into your proximity. They're cautious now, intentional. They call you serious, not because you changed tone, but because your presence changed consequence. They see the difference in the way conversations end when you don't carry the weight. They feel the difference when you don't cushion the discomfort. They notice how your boundaries aren't raised, just enforced. You don't negotiate them. You don't justify them. You don't decorate them with softness. You place them like architecture, clean, structural, immovable. And something about that wordless certainty radiates in a way they can't ignore anymore. It forces them to meet you where you stand, instead of dragging you toward where they feel comfortable. What unsettles them most is this: you didn't become louder, you became clearer. There's a difference. Loud people demand attention. Clear people command it. Loud people broadcast their value. Clear people embody it. Loud people need validation. Clear people move according to internal coordinates. You're in the second category now. And that shift is what makes them treat you like someone they cannot risk misunderstanding again. They don't talk over you the way they used to. They don't assume they know your schedule the way they used to. They don't treat your time as disposable the way they used to. Because now they're aware that access to you is conditional, not guaranteed. They feel the shift in your patience. They feel the precision in your silence. They feel the weight behind your neutrality. You're not withholding, you're choosing. And choosing makes you powerful. Some of them regret their earlier dismissal. Some of them replay conversations where they minimized you. Some of them cringe at how casually they spoke when they assumed you'd never grow into someone they'd have to take seriously. It bothers them quietly, consistently, because they're realizing the version of you they constructed in their mind doesn't exist anymore, and maybe never did. What they're facing now is the truth of who you are, without their projections clouding the view. A person with internal standards, a person with emotional discipline, a person with unshakable self-awareness, a person who doesn't need external validation to justify internal decisions. And people like that create their own gravity, their own orbit, their own pace. You stopped aligning yourself with rooms that demanded your humility as payment for belonging. And the moment you did, those rooms began treating you like a resource they underestimated. This shift, your shift, reorganizes the social ecosystem. It recalibrates dynamics. It forces people to reevaluate not just you, but themselves in relation to you. They start questioning the assumptions they made when they believed you were easy to overlook. They start wondering what else they misinterpreted. They start panicking quietly about being on the wrong side of your growth curve. Because if you evolved this far without their encouragement, what does that say about what you'll become without their interference? And that's the part that grips them, the part they don't speak out loud, the part that makes their voice soften when they address you now. They're not just seeing you differently, they're seeing themselves differently in your presence. They're realizing you no longer bend to fit the room. They adjust themselves to avoid being misaligned with you. They're realizing you don't chase validation, you choose alignment. They're realizing you don't need their permission, you never did. You're unignorable now, not because you forced recognition, but because you removed the parts of yourself that tolerated invisibility. The moment you stopped shrinking, everyone else had to expand their awareness accordingly. And that expansion created the discomfort they're sitting with, the discomfort of realizing they were late to the truth, the discomfort of realizing they underestimated the wrong person, the discomfort of recognizing the quiet caliber of someone who refused to rely on noise to justify their existence. And that discomfort, subtle, creeping, unavoidable, is what's reshaping the way they see you now. Because when someone evolves beyond the need to be seen, that's exactly when the world starts reorganizing itself to make space around them. They don't know how to articulate it, but they feel the shift in their stomach before their mind catches up. They feel the weight in the air when you enter a room, not heavy, but undeniable. They sense the difference in your posture, in your pace, in the way you hold your own energy close instead of scattering it to make others comfortable. You carry yourself like someone who no longer auditions for roles other people wrote for their benefit. And that quiet refusal disrupts the unspoken hierarchy they once relied on to position themselves above you. Hierarchies depend on obedience, on predictability, on emotional compliance. But when you stepped out of that framework, the entire structure began to tilt. People who used to ignore you now overthink their responses. People who once brushed past your presence now linger a second too long, waiting to see if you acknowledge them. People who once dismissed your ideas now seek your input, because your silence carries more threat than their words carry authority. They're treating you like the prize, because something in their instincts recognizes that value isn't loud, it's stable. And stability, when paired with self-awareness, becomes power in any room. What changed wasn't your ambition, your intelligence, or your potential. It was your relationship with your own worth. You stopped negotiating it. You stopped discounting it. You stopped offering it at clearance prices to people who hadn't earned the right to witness it. That shift is what made you stand out. Not arrogance, not ego, alignment. When you become aligned with who you are, the world reacts, recalibrates, re-strategizes. People who once saw you as optional now treat you like a rarity, because rarity is defined not by being unseen, but by refusing to be available where you were once overlooked. That's the psychological punch they weren't ready for. They're trying now, some subtly, some desperately, to adjust themselves to your new internal landscape. They're trying to figure out the updated version of you the same way someone studies a device with a new operating system. They know the old gestures won't work. They know the old shortcuts are gone. They know the old emotional back doors have been welded shut. They know the person who once stretched themselves thin to be understood no longer bends for anyone. And they're treating you like an upgraded version of someone they took for granted, a version they don't have automatic access to anymore. The truth is, once people realize they can't manipulate your self-perception, they start respecting your presence. Respect isn't built on compliments or praise. It's built on restraint, scarcity, boundaries. People respect what they cannot easily influence. They value what reacts on its own timing, not theirs. You became the prize because you stopped moving according to other people's expectations. You move according to your own internal compass now, and that confuses them more than any transformation you could have declared. People don't know how to handle someone who doesn't need validation to function. It disarms them. It deflates their ego. It forces them to confront the truth that you were never beneath them. You were simply operating in a different bandwidth. And now that your bandwidth is coated with clarity, their attempts at control fall flat. They sense your detachment not as coldness, but as completion. You've completed the cycle of proving, explaining, and performing. You've transitioned into a state where you simply are. And that state carries an intensity people can feel even when you say nothing. Some of them are shocked, some are fascinated, some are quietly threatened. No one is neutral, because your presence has become a reference point, a standard, a pressure, a mirror. When someone evolves, it forces everyone around them to confront their own stagnation. They start questioning why you grew while they remained steady, why you shifted while they stayed recycled, why you matured while they clung to habits that gave them cheap comfort and temporary authority. And instead of admitting their complacency, they mask it by suddenly calling you serious, focused, different, unexpected. But they're not describing your transformation. They're describing their regret. Regret for not seeing earlier what's now blindingly obvious. Regret for treating you like background when you were the main frame. Regret for assuming your silence meant insignificance. Regret for thinking their approval was something you needed, when in reality, it was something you outgrew long before they realized it wasn't currency to you anymore. What makes you unignorable now isn't just your progress, it's your contrast. The contrast between who you were forced to be in the past and who you allow yourself to be now. The contrast between how you once tolerated being overlooked and how you now occupy your space with precision. The contrast between their old narrative of you and the reality you now embody effortlessly. You didn't demand recognition. You made dismissal impossible. Now people are watching your moves the way someone watches a fault line, quietly, cautiously, aware that something beneath the surface is shifting. They can feel a sense of momentum inside you, a sense of direction. Even if they don't know your next step, they know you're not stagnating. They know you're not confused. They know you're not lost. And that certainty radiates its own form of authority. People follow certainty. People respect certainty. People treat certainty like something they must protect, align with, or stay close to in case they needed stability later. You became someone others orbit, not because you dragged them into your gravity, but because your gravity finally stopped hiding behind humility. You don't shrink anymore. You don't dilute yourself. You don't make yourself easy to dismiss. You move like someone who's done measuring themselves with broken rulers. You stand like someone who built their worth internally and no longer hands it to others for inspection. You speak like someone whose words aren't bids for approval, but reflections of clarity. And clarity, when held without aggression, becomes intimidating to those who never developed their own. This is why they double take when you speak, why they listen longer when you share your opinion, why they hesitate before interrupting you, why they try to remember details about your life now, why they ask questions they never cared about before. It's not because they suddenly became thoughtful. It's because they now recognize the cost of not paying attention. They don't know what version of you they'll encounter if they take you for granted again. They don't know how much of your tolerance was actually generosity. They don't know how much energy they depleted by assuming your patience was bottomless. And now they're operating with caution, respect disguised as curiosity, admiration disguised as attentiveness, insecurity disguised as praise. They want proximity, but they're not sure if they qualify for it anymore. That's the shift, not the praise, not the compliments, not the sudden attention. The shift is the hesitation that wasn't there before, the hesitation that reveals awareness, the hesitation that exposes how deeply your evolution has disrupted their internal hierarchy. They're recalibrating because you no longer fit into the file they mislabeled you under. You're not easygoing to them anymore. You're discerning. You're not quiet to them anymore. You're observant. You're not simple to them anymore. You're strategic. You're not available to them anymore. You're selective. And selection is the most powerful silent language on the psychological battlefield of human dynamics. When you become selective, people begin competing quietly, respectfully, desperately to be chosen. Your absence now holds more weight than your presence once did. That's the transformation. Once you were taken for granted because your energy was assumed unlimited. Now your energy is rare, and humans instinctively value what they fear losing. They adjust their behavior, not because they want to honor you, but because they fear miscalculating you. They're treating you like the prize because your self-worth created a perimeter they can't breach with old habits. And nothing destabilizes people faster than realizing that the version of you they controlled no longer exists, and the version standing before them chooses differently. This is the moment where their psychology begins rewriting itself around you. Whether they admit it or not, they approach you with the same caution someone uses when touching something valuable. For the first time, gentle, slow, calculated. They're aware now that one wrong move could cost them access, and that awareness makes them tread their words more carefully, study your expression more closely, measure their tone more consciously. You can sense the recalibration happening behind their eyes, that quiet scramble to update their internal map of who you are. Because the old coordinates no longer lead to the version of you they relied on. People who once assumed your loyalty were shocked to discover that your loyalty was actually endurance. People who once believed you'd always understand them now realize you simply tolerated more than they deserved. People who confidently took up space in your life without contributing anything now struggle to understand how to regain what they squandered. They're calling you serious now because they don't know how else to label someone who stopped bending, stopped explaining, stopped apologizing for having standards. They're trying to categorize what they can't control. It's human instinct. What unnerves them most isn't your distance. It's the fact that your distance is peaceful. You're not punishing anyone. You're not broadcasting your withdrawal. You're not performing disappointment or crafting dramatic exits. You simply stopped offering your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth. That kind of quiet separation is terrifying because it's not fueled by anger. It's fueled by clarity. And clarity doesn't reverse. It doesn't wobble. It doesn't negotiate. It simply continues moving toward environments that match its frequency. They see that in you now, that forward motion, that grounded direction, that absence of need. You aren't competing for space in their world. You're building your own. And in that shift, they've become the ones chasing alignment. They're chasing reassurance. They're chasing proximity. They're chasing the comfort of the dynamic where you were always available to understand, to soften, to absorb. But you're not offering that anymore. You're offering boundaries, and boundaries are foreign ground to people who were accustomed to walking through your life without knocking. Your new presence, calm, firm, unattached, forces people to confront themselves. Some don't like what they see. Some crave your attention because it once acted as a mirror that made them feel more significant. Some chase your presence because your absence now exposes their internal emptiness. But here's the truth they avoid saying out loud. They respect you more now that you stopped letting everyone have access. Human psychology is wired to value what is maintained, protected, and self-regulated. Your self-respect became a signal, one that everyone is suddenly decoding with a mixture of admiration and unease. You became the prize not because you fought for that position, but because you stopped auditioning for roles beneath you. You carry yourself like someone who doesn't need validation to justify their decisions. That's what makes people pay attention now. Consistency without performance. Confidence without arrogance. Presence without desperation. There's power in that triad, a quiet one, but unmistakable. Now they're studying your behavior the way someone studies a pattern they don't understand yet. They watch how you respond to things they once used to test you. They notice what you don't respond to anymore. They pick up on the pauses you allow, the moments you choose silence instead of defending yourself, the way you walk away instead of justifying your boundaries. These shifts disarm them. They feel like they're interacting with someone who sees through everything but chooses to reveal nothing. And that psychological opacity, the refusal to be predictable, creates gravity. You're not chasing attention. Attention is chasing you. You're not proving your value. Your presence demonstrates it without needing explanation. You're not begging to be seen. People are working overtime to prevent themselves from being overlooked by you. That's how the polarity flips. Not with drama, not with confrontation, with self-respect so unwavering it becomes magnetic. And here's where the deeper psychological layer emerges. People now measure themselves against your reactions instead of measuring you against their expectations. That's the mark of true elevation. They come prepared. They choose their words like offerings. They approach your boundaries like thresholds they must earn the right to cross. The care they apply now isn't courtesy, it's caution. Caution born from the realization that they misread you for far too long. They whisper your name differently now. They reference you with a tone that wasn't there before. They ask about you with an awareness that betrays their newfound interest. It's not obsession, it's correction. They're correcting the mistake of underestimating a person who had the discipline to grow in ways they didn't notice. until the results walked into the room before you did. And now, the world interacts with you based on those results. You became someone whose presence implies standards. You became someone whose silence holds consequence. You became someone whose no carries weight, not because it's loud, but because it's final. You became someone whose attention is a resource that must be respected, not assumed. All of this shifts how they treat you because, deep down, they fear being on the wrong side of your evolution again. What they don't realize is that treating you like the prize doesn't change who you are. It changes who they become around you. People self-optimize around those they perceive as valuable. They raise their tone, adjust their conduct, refine their words. They apply effort. They regulate themselves. And that's what's happening now. They're regulating themselves around you because your presence feels like a mirror they don't want to disappoint. But here's the part that runs deeper, the part that tightens the psychological grip of this transformation. You're not moved by their sudden recognition. Their praise doesn't inflate you. Their validation doesn't direct you. Their attention doesn't tether you. That neutrality, the inability to be swayed by what once influenced you, makes them take you even more seriously. They see that your self-worth isn't dependent on external signals, and people who can't be manipulated with recognition become the most respected individuals in any social environment. They're realizing something uncomfortable. You don't need them, but they feel like they need you, not for survival, but for self-regulation. You bring clarity, you bring stability, you bring direction through example, not instruction. Your presence exposes the cracks in their internal leadership. And when someone feels that kind of psychological contrast, they respond by elevating their behavior around you, sometimes consciously, often instinctively. And that's where the tension really snaps into place. Because once they recognize that you don't need them, once they realize their presence no longer dictates your emotional climate, something primal awakens in them. A kind of social survival instinct they can't articulate, but can't silence either. They start orbiting you with the caution of someone approaching a throne they once treated like a folding chair. Suddenly, you're not that person they know. You're the reference point they measure their own maturity against, the calm benchmark that exposes how unstable their inner architecture really is. And the funniest part, the quietly chaotic part, is that you didn't ask for any of this. You didn't demand to be elevated. You didn't stage a dramatic reclamation of worth. You simply stopped shrinking, and the entire ecosystem around you began reorganizing like a glitching simulation desperately trying to render the new shape of your presence. They don't admit it out loud, but your neutrality terrifies them more than your emotions ever did. When you were reactive, they knew what tools to reach for: guilt, dismissal, manipulation, performance, deflection. But now that you stand there with this unsettling stillness, this uncluttered awareness, this refusal to be baited, they feel exposed in ways they can't camouflage. Your steadiness makes their chaos visible. Your clarity makes their contradictions louder. Your composure makes their theatrics look embarrassing even to themselves. And that's when the shift fully crystallizes. They stop evaluating you through their ego and start evaluating themselves through your presence. Your value isn't up for debate anymore. They feel it, they adjust to it, they soften around it. Even the ones who swore they'd never take you seriously now carry your name differently in their mouths, like a word they suddenly realized needs careful pronunciation. And here's the twist that tightens the knife. The more respectfully they treat you, the more you realize how little of this has to do with them. You didn't evolve to be admired. You evolved because staying small was suffocating. You didn't become the prize to be chosen. You became the prize because you chose yourself first. But their reactions are priceless. There's a particular look people get when they realize you're no longer impressed by their mediocrity. It's a blend of confusion, respect, and a subtle panic. Like someone who just discovered the safety net they took for granted wasn't actually part of the building. That's why they're cautious now. That's why they minimize their own drama in your presence. That's why they speak with intention instead of assumption. They're terrified of being the one who mishandles you, now that the room treats you like something rare. This is the chaotic, dark humor of the whole transformation. The same people who underestimated you are now overthinking every syllable they offer you. The same people who dismissed your insight now quote your phrases like scripture. The same people who once acted like you were optional now treat your attention like a privilege with an expiration date they desperately hope doesn't come soon. You didn't become unignorable by performing significance. You became unignorable by no longer performing insignificance. That's the part that disturbs them. The simplicity of your evolution. No fireworks, no speeches, no revenge campaigns. Just a refusal to keep handing your brilliance to people who couldn't even hold their own identity without dropping it. And now they're trying to catch up, rebranding themselves, softening their tone, rewriting history in their heads to make it seem like they always knew you had potential. But you see right through that narrative revision. You see the cracks in their confidence. You see the tremors behind their politeness. You see how desperately they want to be included in this next chapter, even though they didn't invest in the one that built you. They call you serious now, because seriousness is the closest language they have for someone who no longer entertains foolishness. What they really mean is that you intimidate them. What they really mean is that you outgrew the emotional currency they used to bargain with. What they really mean is that you became someone they can't manipulate with breadcrumbs of validation. And people fear what they can't manipulate. They respect what they can't predict. They watch closely what they can't control. Some of them are terrified of disappointing you. Others are terrified of losing access. And a few, the ones who really underestimated you, are terrified because they finally realized you're not impressed by them anymore. That's what happens when you become the prize. People either elevate themselves or eliminate themselves. They adjust or they exit. They grow or they shrink. And what's poetic is that you don't have to force any of it. Your evolution does the sorting automatically. Your presence became a filter, a truth serum, a spotlight, a quiet recalibration that exposes who can stand in your orbit without collapsing under the weight of their own unaddressed insecurities. And here's the subtle chaos embedded in this stage. The more grounded you become, the more unstable their masks become. They slip, they crack, they glitch, because masks require constant performance. And your silence exposes how exhausting that performance really is. You being unignorable isn't about visibility, it's about undeniability. People can't deny your discipline, your clarity, your growth, your composure. They can't deny how different you feel, even if they can't articulate why. They can't deny how every interaction with you leaves them slightly more aware of their own fragmentation. That's why they take you seriously now. Not because they suddenly developed better taste in people, but because they now recognize that you hold yourself with a level of self-respect they must match if they want access. And the irony is delicious. The more seriously they take you, the less seriously you take their approval. That asymmetry is what cements your position. They're invested, you're selective, they're attentive, you're observant, they're hopeful, you're neutral. You've become the calm center of a circle. They're all trying not to get pushed out of, and that's the part they're terrified to admit. That somewhere along the line, the dynamic flipped, and now they're the ones performing emotional calculus just to maintain their position near you. They weigh their words, not because you demand perfection, but because your presence exposes laziness. They monitor their tone, not because you punish imperfection, but because your boundaries leave no room for carelessness. They analyze your reactions the way people analyze a weather pattern, trying to predict what version of themselves is safest to bring into your orbit. You didn't ask to be the standard. You became it by refusing to lower yourself to meet anyone's convenience. Your selectiveness has become a pressure system. They can feel the weight of it each time you fall silent, each time you take your time before responding, each time you choose not to give them the emotional shortcuts they once depended on. The world is used to people begging for attention, but you operate on a different circuitry entirely. You don't chase, you don't over-explain, you don't cling, you don't negotiate your worth. That level of internal sovereignty is rare, and rarity always commands a higher psychological price. You're not playing hard to get. You're simply hard to mishandle. That distinction carries a quiet brutality they can't ignore, because it forces them to confront a truth they've spent years avoiding. Access to you was always a privilege, never a default. You were generous, not desperate. You were patient, not passive. You were understanding, not unaware. And now that you've withdrawn the version of yourself who tolerated nonsense, they're scrambling to adapt to the version of you who doesn't make space for anything that disrupts your peace. Suddenly they're watching their own behavior through your eyes. Suddenly they're correcting themselves before you ever need to. Suddenly they're putting effort into things they used to skip, remembering details, honoring commitments, showing consistency, because they know your tolerance for carelessness is dead. You buried that version of yourself quietly, elegantly, and without ceremony. And even though they didn't attend the funeral, they feel the absence sharply. But the deeper shift, the one that tightens the psychological noose, is this: they're not improving to win you. They're improving to avoid being the reason they lose you. That's what happens when you become the prize. You stop being the one who adjusts. You stop being the one who compensates. You stop being the one who explains. You move through the world with a clean, silent expectation. Match the frequency or fall out of range. And what's fascinating is how instinctively they respond to that. Even the ones who once bragged about not needing anyone's approval now find themselves hungry for your acknowledgement. Even the ones who pretended they were too busy to notice you are suddenly hyper-aware of when you enter or exit a space. Even the ones who dismissed you now position themselves strategically, hoping proximity will make them relevant again. It doesn't. You've outgrown the era where proximity was a form of currency. You're not impressed by attention anymore. You're assessing intentions now. You're observing patterns. You're reading inconsistencies. You're prioritizing alignment over admiration. And that terrifies them, because admiration is easy. But alignment requires accountability. And accountability is the one thing people who underestimated you hoped they'd never owe you. But the world has reordered itself around your presence. Whether they like it or not, your growth has become a silent referendum on theirs. You've become the uncomfortable reminder of what they could have been if they didn't waste so much time performing confidence instead of building it. And in that shadow, they feel smaller, not because you diminish them, but because your evolution makes their stagnation louder. This is where the chaotic dark humor slides in, the twist they never saw coming. Once upon a time, they expected you to chase clarity. Now they're the ones chasing closure. Once, they expected you to justify your worth. Now they're the ones explaining their intentions. Once they believed you needed their acceptance. Now they're anxiously gauging whether they still qualify for yours. Your elevation turned the people who once treated you like background noise into people who monitor your silence like a warning signal. And it hits them hardest at the moments they least expect. A conversation where you no longer soften your boundaries, a decision you make without asking for a vote, a room where you stand without shrinking, a glance that reveals nothing. Your neutrality is a psychological scalpel, precise, sharp, impossible to argue with. It cuts through pretense, it cuts through manipulation, it cuts through people who once relied on your emotional generosity to avoid confronting their flaws. That's why they take you seriously now, not out of admiration, but out of self-preservation. People fear misreading someone who can cut emotional ties without anger. People fear disappointing someone who doesn't hide the consequences in theatrics, but in distance. People fear losing someone whose absence now echoes louder than their presence ever used to. But here's the final shift, the one that locks everything into its new order. You don't simply evaluate people now. You curate them. You curate who gets to hear from you. You curate who gets access to your thoughts. You curate who gets the soft parts of your energy. You curate who gets the benefit of your insight. Your life has become intentional, not crowded, refined, not chaotic, selective, not reactive. And this curation, this deliberate filtering, creates an ecosystem where only those with genuine value can survive. You're not just unignorable anymore. You're untouchable to those who haven't done their own work. You're unreachable to those who still operate from entitlement. You're unshakable by people who once thrived off your uncertainty. They now treat you like the prize because your energy no longer leaks into places that dishonor it. You've become a rarity, someone who doesn't just know their worth, but protects it with quiet, unwavering consistency. And in a world where most people trade their integrity for attention, that makes you dangerous in the most elegant way possible.